How's it going, everybody? This is Weston at Weston's Toys and Collectibles, and today we're going to take a look at the Transformers Kingdom Optimus Primal, the Voyager class leader of the Maximals. And this guy looks great. Here's nice artwork of him in his robot mode, with the Ark in the background on Mount St. Hilary. And of course in his gorilla mode. Coming around to the side, you have this nice Kingdom artwork we have had on all of the nice Kingdom boxes that we've received. And then on the back of the box, we have him in his robot and his gorilla modes. And he looks pretty good. Transforms in 22 steps. So, without further ado, here is the figure. And he looks pretty good. Very nice shade of black that they used for the fur texturing on this figure. Nice red and white, and this dark blue just looks great. I will note that the chest on this figure isn't completely accurate to the show. They actually are releasing a Netflix version of this character, which is has so little done in the way of repainting. It's almost like a mute point to even release it. The only thing that they really have repainted on that figure is the chest. And I think it's a slightly different shade of red that they used. So I won't be getting that version of this character, as this one I think is a great version anyway. So very nice figure. Very clean on the back. There's not a whole lot to him. Nothing really to complain about. Now, I have seen where people think that this looks like Sid the Sloth from Ice Age, and I don't disagree with them. It's kind of something that once you see it, you can't unsee it. Like the eyes and the nose and his teeth. It's kind of hilarious. But quite unfortunate that once, like I said, once you see it, you can't really unsee it. It just looks like he has a sloth head sticking out of his crotch. Anyway, for articulation, this guy is really nice. So he's got a ball joint from the body into the head, and he can look up a fair ways, so he can kind of look Megatron in the eye before a battle. He can look down to about straight. He can't really look down very far, so you take what you can get. He can rotate all the way around, and not really any kind of side-to-side tilt. These cannons here can actually articulate, and if you don't want them out like this, you can actually hide them away in his body, or just leave them in there. That's a kind of up to you choice. He does have a butterfly joint forward, which is fairly nice. It's not gonna set the world on fire, but it's very nice to see that joint on a figure from the main line. Rotation here on a swivel, all the way around on universal joints, and then out all the way, like so. You can't really get up. Rotation here on the bicep, and I think that's probably the loosest joint on this figure, between the bicep rotation and the actual butterfly joint here. I think those are the two loosest joints on this figure. This one's actually a bit tighter. He does have a deep bend on the elbow. It breaks up the sculpt a bit here, but it's alright. Can't really expect an elbow joint to not break up the sculpt on this main line. Rotation at the wrist, and then the hands can actually open and close. Sorry, rotation on the wrist all the way around. Hands can open and close. The detailing on this bicep is really nice too. Kind of focusing on the arms, you can actually push in here on the bottom and pull out his wrist cannons. And he has that on both sides. So you just push this out, pull out his wrist cannons. So you can fight Megatron with a little bit of firepower here. Not only that, he can also use the firepower here coming out of his shoulders. Pretty cool, and those just slide back in. He has a waist swivel, very nice. Nothing at the abdomen joint. Rotation of the legs forward that far. If you pull this butt flap out of the way, you can get his leg all the way back. Splits, he can only go about that far. Just plenty. I don't really see him as the kind of dynamic character to do the splits. A really tight rotation at the thigh. I've actually loosened up most of these screws. I've loosened this screw on each side. I've loosened this screw here for the knee joints, and I think I've tightened this joint because this was really loose here. Yeah, so I think I tightened these bottom screws a little bit, loosened these screws, and then loosened up the screws in the back of the thigh, and these still got really tight joints. They were ridiculously tight to the point of not being able to move them before I took him out of the package, though. So it's the fact that I can move him like this is a lot better than what it was. So the knee joint, he has kind of a double knee. This is the knee proper, and you get back to that far, which arguably is plenty. But you can also use that secondary joint, which is more for transformation, to get even more knee bend if you need it. It breaks up the sculpt tremendously, but it's there if you want it. He does have a rotation here in the shin, which is an interesting joint. And then he has side to side, a little bit of ankle tilt, toe tilt forward, and then the heel can also tilt back. So and this can actually move forward and back too if you unlock the mechanism here, but that does lock into place for robot mode. So that's pretty much it for his robot mode. Pretty cool. He does come with 2 accessories. He comes with 2 identical swords, and these can store on his back in robot mode and in gorilla mode. You can store on his back, or of course he can hold them. One of 2 ways. You can either have him hold it so that this rounded edge is the front of the blade, or that the other end is the front of the blade. I prefer more like this. It seems more like a scimitar to me. But I know, like, in some promotional art, he's holding them like this. I think properly it's supposed to be like that. So pull these out, and so here he is compared to Air Razor. I showed this in my Air Razor video as well. Pretty cool. The size comparison seems about right here. Once we get all of the Maximals and all of the Predacons, I'll be doing size comparison videos with all of the whole team basically all together, so you can see just kind of how they stack up. So for transformation, it's a fairly simple transformation, really. So you want to come back here, and best way to start is just kind of flip this down, and actually it will lock into place. Rotate the waist like so, and then you can bring up the robot toes. They just kind of fold up to the back here. I'm going to leave the legs like that for right now, because there's a few different ways you can transform the legs. So the next thing you want to do is just bring these shoulder panels down to cover the shoulders. Bring these out slightly so you can push this back, and this is the scariest part of this figure is pushing this back to unlock this. I'm not sure exactly how it locks into place, but it's a very unsettling joint, and I really can't see how it locks in, but it locks in so securely and so tightly. I think it has to do with these ports here, and then these little, like, there's little raised sections here. But I just don't understand how it's so terribly tight. Anyway, once you get that pulled back, you want to flip the chest around. So you have the gorilla chest. And mine doesn't seem to sit proper. Like, it doesn't seem to sit flush. It either wants to go out slightly too far or in slightly too far. You can hide these little guns in here now. And this is how you hide them away in for robot mode. You just put them inside and, not worry about them. So if you're transforming them back to robot mode, just don't flip them out. And you can also have them flipped out in the gorilla mode. It doesn't really matter. So you're going to pull this up on this post here and kind of roll the gorilla head forward. Rotate this whole assembly. Push it back in. Rotate the gorilla head around. Kind of bring it down. You can get the rest of the way around. And you're going to bring this whole thing up. And it will lock back into place. And then just kind of flip this panel down. And that's its natural resting position here. And we'll go into that here in a second. Now, you have a few different options for how you want to display his gorilla mode. Bring his head down now. So one option in the instructions is that you bring his legs forward on the double hinge. Like so. And just kind of collapse him down a bit. And I think bring him back a little. I'm not entirely certain on how they want you to do this. I guess they want you to bring it back a little. So it ends up looking like that. Which isn't terrible. It kind of squats him down a little bit. But gives him this like ridiculous badonkadonk just kind of hanging out the back there. So this is definitely like not my I don't suggest using this mode as much. It's kind of his Planet of the Apes mode. The other way is to just bend the knees back on the main knee joint as far as they go. Bring the arms forward. Kind of pull them back a bit. Rotate just the wrist. Don't rotate the whole arm because then you'll have all this red and white showing here. Just rotate the wrist. And you can kind of bring the head up a little bit. So, and I think that's more of a proper stance for this. And it looks really good. I have been thinking about doing a dry brush of silver to make him a silverback. I know that's not technically accurate to the cartoon, but it's kind of just something I want to do with this figure. You can kind of rotate his back feet out. And if you want, you can open his hands so he can step on his knuckles. Anyway, in this mode, you can still store his swords on his back. It just kind of looks ridiculous. You just have a gorilla walking around with swords sticking out of his back. But otherwise, he looks pretty cool. The texturing on the fur is really nice. The face is pretty good. The eyes are brown with a black pupil painted in. The face is nicely sculpted. Articulation in this mode is virtually identical when it comes to the arms and the legs, other than you lose the hip joints. But for the head, you can look up this far, and for some poses that might work out pretty well, but from like the side it doesn't look very great. And then also it can rotate here, or side to side, kind of just like a swivel side to side there. And rotate at the base for that transformation hinge. So you can kind of get him looking off at an angle like that. I think that looks really good for posing. But otherwise, it's a really good looking figure. I definitely recommend him. He looks good all around for the most part. He does, he is a bit gappy in some places, but you kind of gotta expect that from a figure of this price range. For all the things that they needed it to do, that it does well. I can forgive a few things that it doesn't do so well. So this has been my review of the Transformers Kingdom Optimus Primal, and until next time, till all are one.